My name is Elizabeth Nelson. I am one of the co-founders of the Smart Building Certification. I'm also one of the scientists of Smart Building Certification, looking at how do we build a tool and a process for measuring buildings, but more importantly, to make better buildings. So many people are concerned with how, good evening from Barcelona, how smart a building is, but in the end, the smartness of a building it's not a checklist. It's not amount of money that you put in your building. It's a measurement to make your building better. And it comes really down to the science. And we have invested so much with a foundation in science and getting a lot of scientists involved to really look at how do we work with this, and then working with experts within technology and business and real estate to really say, is this applicable? Is this something that we can put together? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my favorite part of this, which is the science, and hopefully get a little bit of conversation. I'm also going to try to finish a little bit early because I know it's a long day and you all deserve a nice evening. So I'm going to kick it off just talking about my story. My doctoral research is in proactive employee healthcare using technologies. It's with the biomedical engineering department. And it's something that I love, and it's become such a passion, but it was also a complete surprise looking at where I came from. I started off in advertising, and I found a job that I loved with one of the best advertising agencies in the world. They had some of the best clients at the time, and I was really, really young. I was 23, and totally pushed myself into this beautiful world and started working all the time and getting to a point where I couldn't sleep and was working on the weekend. It's always replying to emails and needed a bigger cup of coffee, another glass of wine, and all of this kind of thing. And it got to the point where I should have saw some red flags, but I didn't. And it took falling asleep during a bikini wax to realize that I had burned out from a job that I love and needed to figure out what to do next. So I'm a researcher, and I decided, what if I pitched a PhD project, which included the business department, the psychology department, and the biomedical engineering department to look at how we use technologies and see if we can solve some of the problems that we have with employee health, burnout, this sort of thing. And it also led to my book, The Healthy Office Revolution, which tells my somewhat embarrassing story of burnout and some of the science behind the studies that we've done since, and some of the amazing things that most people don't realize about burnout. So just kicking off into burnout, the three major contributors to burnout are sleep. Sleep is a huge factor, and it's one of the things. We did a long-term study, actually the longest study of any burnout patients, where we looked at their sleep quality, their sleep length, the amount of times that they were waking up. We did it on a huge population, and we found we had certain people who burned out and were willing to have their data analyzed from a burnout perspective. And we saw that burnout is a very, very slow developing disease. And Americans might be, and many other countries might be surprised by me calling it a disease, but in certain parts of Europe and in certain parts of the world, it is a diagnosed disease. And it's something that the doctor sends you home for, lets you recover from, this kind of thing. And we did it in the Netherlands where this is diagnosed, and they were sent home to recover. So we saw that you could actually see when people were positively recovering and when people were struggling, where they went back to work too quickly, either part-time or full-time, where people started having higher levels of stress, and you could see it in the data, and it was remarkable in that way. The other aspect is control. Control is something that is maybe a little bit easier now that we work from home, but it's something that has a huge impact on burnout. And having elements of control in your life, your career, your schedule, it's something that really impacts burnout. And then stress. Now, stress is interesting because stress, of course, impacts sleep. If you're stressed, you're less likely to sleep well. And if you're lower in stress, then you're doing better. But so you get stressed, you don't sleep as much, you don't sleep very well, you get more stressed, and it kind of snowballs in that area. So we've done quite a bit of research with quite a bit of universities into different aspects of health in the workplace and all of that kind of thing. And I'm going to take you through some of the things. One of the more interesting researches that we've done recently has been on sound. So we took over a whole floor of booking.com and looked at how does sound impact work? How does work impact productivity, health, happiness, qualitative responses, quantitative responses on, is this working? Is this something that you enjoy? That kind of thing. And put them in different scenarios and rotated them. And what we actually found out was there are different profiles that do better with sound than others. Now, extroverts are known to do better in workplaces in general. Extroverts are more likely to make management teams. They're more likely to be seen for their accomplishments. They're most likely to speak out, and they're more likely to progress in their career quickly. And what we saw is that extroverts are more resilient in noisy places, which a lot of workplaces, at least before COVID, really are. And so what we saw is that extroverts are also more likely to be morning people within this research that we did. So the morning people and extroverts gave an interesting challenge. And one thing that we thought of was, okay, let's put together some places for introverts, some amazing solitude for them to work, a private room where it's basically a one-person office where nobody owns them. You can come in, take the room for the day or for a few hours and really get that focus worth that maybe more of us are having now with COVID, although I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And we said, this is perfect. We're going to analyze this and have amazing results for these introverts and their oasis. The problem was introverts also are more likely to be afternoon people. So we did this amazing solution that didn't end up working because we had extroverts coming into the space and taking the offices and sitting there having a very productive early morning and then missing the collaboration with their colleagues and coming out to the open areas and making a lot of noise. So it was one of those challenges where you think that you found a great solution for a workplace, but in the end you needed to tweak it a little bit for the actual people that's in the building. Another interesting thing that we're looking at is biophilic design or plants. And this can be a technology solution, of course. So plants and digital green is an extraordinary possibility, especially within places that are a little bit more limited. So in hospitals, for example, having real plants is very difficult from a sanitary point of view. And so what they've done in some hospitals is actually looking at green windows, fake green windows. In the hospital where I delivered my son, there were windows with cherry blossoms blowing in the wind. And it was one of the best windows in the hospital, actually, because the other ones were facing parking lots and this kind of thing. But having solutions like that, where we actually see that people are responding in the same positive ways to digital green that they do to regular green areas. So what you see with being around plants, being around the noise of nature, thunderstorms, crashing waves, that kind of thing, it can lower anxiety, blood pressure, help people sleep better, improve their moods. They're actually using what they call forest bathing to have people walk through forests as a way to lower anxiety and stress, and actually as kind of a psychological tool as well as a physical tool. Lighting is an amazing thing that we're looking at, where light is incredibly important. And it's also one of the things that I think in our current state, the majority of buildings have very poor light for us on a neurological level. So one of the things before COVID is when we were leaving for the office in the morning, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, you're most likely leaving or the Southern, you're most likely leaving in the dark in the winter, and you're coming back in the dark in the evening. And what happens is our circadian rhythm gets a little bit off. And they did this amazing experience where they kept people in essentially the dark for days and days in a row. And what happened was they ended up actually losing, I think, half a day or quite a few hours. So they were adjusting just a little bit every day because they needed that regulation of when is the sun coming up, when is it highest in the sky. And so with offices, with the lower lighting that we're seeing, we have a amazing kind of reaction to it, and amazing in a terrible way, where we're not processing the light, we're not on the right time, and we're not getting the benefit. As after you need to feel awake, you need to do this. So we're kind of always in that moment of dawn or dusk, where our brain isn't really sure that what time of the day it is, and that it should be awake and alert. Mindfulness, I think, is also a really interesting thing that we could talk about. It's something that's been a part of our research, and it's an interesting topic when you think about stress in the workplace. And I think since COVID, stress in the workplace has been a different but very active part of the workplace. What we're seeing is that people have different kinds of stress. They don't have necessarily the commute, although a lot of people have gone back to work at some capacity or not. They don't have the same control of their space. There was recently a survey done where people said that they have more focus time at their home, and they prefer working from home, but they like the space in their office better. So this could be that the environment is better, or that it has the colleagues that they like to collaborate with, but it could also mean that that the environment is just better suited for work, and having that switch of having a home and an office. I think we can all appreciate when you work from home too much, it gets a little bit crazy. And some of the activity that we're looking at when we look at how active people are, the different technologies that we have to look through movement in the workplace. How are people using the space? What are we doing with that? One of our researchers and a brilliant professor from Harvard Business School has done some amazing research, Ethan Bernstein, which really questions how do we interact with our team. And I think it's amazing during this Zoom time in our life, but should we sit with our team members? And actually the answer is no. We should come to our team when we have set and clear goals to get through together, but not in the way that says, hey Fred, did you finish this email? Did you work on this? That kind of thing. So I think COVID is a really interesting time. And I had a conversation last week where we were talking about measuring the building and the health standards, and what is the responsibility there, and what should we do? And I was thinking, because we have the technology to measure air quality, to measure air movement or lack of movement, ventilation, because we have enough to know what's going on with employees, is there a certain responsibility for something that we should be doing in this moment? And I thought at, when did they invent radar? This is kind of like flying blind, flying without radar. And I looked up radar today and when it was developed, and radar took a very long time to get established. So the first tower for commercial flights, or not commercial, but for civil flights, was in 1946. And it wasn't until 1950 that radar was actually used among all planes. So there was literally this time where we were flying blind. And are we seeing this again? You know, we never make the same mistakes twice, right? Are we seeing this again, where we are flying blind in a time when we have the technology to measure, that we can easily do the analysis and assess the risk, and implement it? So I'd love to have some questions now. I finished a little bit early. Maybe I have one more thing to say, but I'm very curious if you can put something in the Q&A of what do you think about offices going back, workplaces going back? when they have no information about what's going on with their air quality, for example, if there's anything in that. Maybe I'll talk about the certification in the meantime. So I know it's the end of the day, and I just want to talk a little bit about the certification. This is something that we're very passionate about, and a group of us came together, last year, early last year, where we said we think a smart building certification would help a lot in a lot of ways. I think this is something that is not just a building solution. I think this is also hugely affected in technology, but also finance. What we're looking at now is a possible change in the way that we encounter real estate, and seeing what is the asset valuation. Should smart mortgages be coming up soon? What are we doing with smart buildings as opposed to dumb buildings, or safer buildings versus unsafe buildings? How do we attack this and put together something that is to some extent exhaustive, that we can actually measure something very complex, that has a huge foundation in science and something that's constantly growing, that really involves technology and real estate, because this is not this is siloed industries working towards one cause, but can we bring them together? And it's events like this and leaders like Wouter and Derek, who are putting these kind of things together and de-siloing the industry. And can we put together an assessment that also is very helpful for dumb buildings? So, and I mean dumb in a very loving way. Can we take buildings that are on their way and give them a good roadmap to having a better knowledge of what's going on in their building, looking at what are the trends, and also measuring against the other smart buildings in the world, or the smartest buildings in the world. So I think that that's the reason that we really had a passion for this and decided this is something that we could do. We could involve the right parties, we could get the right experts, and we could develop something that would evolve over time to be helpful in getting smart buildings the right asset valuations, get smart mortgages going, get different things like that, and helping buildings get smarter in ways that are more than just putting lots of money in your building, but actually getting better buildings. So that's what we're doing. Let's look at I've got a couple questions. Yeah, okay, which one first? I'm gonna go with the second one, just because it's what I just read most recently. And I think it's an amazing question. I had a conversation, and I think specifically about London, when we were talking about transport, and someone said, what should we do about people who transfer trains, or they're on the commuter trains for more than 40 minutes when the pandemic was first starting? And I said, oh my God, why are we even talking about people who are spending an hour on the tube during this pandemic when we're all supposed to be staying home? We need to look at proximity and see if we can fix proximity. And I totally agree. Air quality in the tube is terrible to begin with, but when you look at contagion and virus spreading, it's much worse. So I agree. I think governments and transportation needs to really look at these centralized places that have way too much congestion. And it's nothing compared to the buildings, but I really believe that smart cities are a collection of individual smart spaces. And so governments needs to take responsibility for theirs, and building owners or renters or any of that need to take responsibility for theirs, so that we connect the city, but we also improve the health of it. Does that answer your question, anonymous attendee? Okay, we'll see. Yeah, okay. So, and then another question is, what is your opinion of standards such as well? I think maybe Wouter's on the line as well, and he can, I don't know if he's on, but we can talk a little bit about this. we believe that the other standards are all helping make better buildings. So when you're looking at BREEAM, LEED, WELL, where they look at sustainability or health or something in that, we totally welcome any other certifications that are attacking this from their perspective. I think that the smart building certification, because we do cover sustainability in terms of what technology is applied to sustainable measures or sustainable behavior, and then health from a technology standpoint. And that, I think, because we attack it from the technology, it's a nice all-inclusive way to get started into that. Does it cover some of the sustainability aspects that BREEAM and LEED cover? No, they go into how the building was built, the materials that's used. We don't cover that kind of thing. So this is really, I think, a nice all-encompassing asset of what I think is the brain of the building, the smartness of the building. And it's maybe a good first step, or in conjunction with one of the others. And but it's a very nice sum of that way. Does that answer your question, Jacob French? I don't know. And then David Katz, I'd love to get in contact. Let's definitely connect. Are there any other questions, or oh, are you? Okay. Anonymous attendee, also very good question. Are you concerned that smart building certification will be gamed by developers to gain maximum accreditation thresholds as defined by market sentiment trends, and has been the case of many of the sustainability accreditations over time? I think that's certainly a loaded question, and a deep question. We've set up the certification to avoid that at all costs. We know that that has been anytime you accredit something or you certify something, you have to be incredibly careful with who's scoring this, who's involved, how is this being scored, what are the relationships. So we've actually followed the academic review process, where we have 3 different reviewers who are blind to the building. They don't know who they're certifying, and assessing both the quantitative responses and qualitative aspects of the building to get a score. And then those 3 scores are looked at by an overall editor. And if there's not a huge anomaly, then they're put together and averaged. So this is something that we're trying our best to avoid in terms of that. In terms of minimum thresholds, I think that we have to see what the governments and that consider to be minimal thresholds, because we don't even know right now. Right now we have some governments who are giving smart building grants or funding to smart buildings with no real proof of or definition of what a smart building is. So that's something that we have to look at in the future. But yeah, it's absolutely something moving forward that we have to make sure this isn't used as a tool in the wrong way, and that can be helpful, but also, yeah, keeps its reputation and its standard. Did that answer your question? Are there any more questions or any comments? Oh, here's.
They keep popping up.
Oh, Ben. Thank you, Ben. Not anonymous anymore. So I promised I'd let you all go a little bit early. Please get in contact if you'd like to discuss anything. We are officially launching in 2021, although we're using this year to measure against some buildings, and we're taking in a couple more possibly. So please get in contact if you have a building you would like to certify. If you want to join our community and our network, we have everyone from amazing, brilliant professors to tech startups to real estate companies to everything. So we're really trying to bring the community together and talk about the things that just like this, that are really pressing and trying to move the needle forward. Because I think in the end, we all are just passionate and impatient, and we're ready for buildings to be better and technology to be used by everyone. And I think the future looks amazing in that way. So thank you so much for listening.